Hi, I'm Ethan, I love muzzleloading, and I receive a lot of questions about the required shooting gear for shooting traditional muzzleloaders. A lot of this is kind of mysterious for many of us. When it comes to muzzleloading, those of us that are really into it have really unique and really different looking items you can't necessarily pick up at your local sporting goods store. So I want to kind of go through the equipment that I have for my Kibler Southern Mountain Rifle and tell you about the definitions and the purpose of some of this equipment, so that if you have your first flintlock, or if you're looking to really complete your accoutrements for your flintlock, you can kind of use this as a basis for your research and a purchasing guide, maybe kind of see what you might need for your flintlock. To start off here, you'll see I have two bags here on the bench, and one of them is my primary shooting bag. This is the one that always goes with my rifle. If I'm taking my rifle out to shoot for really anything, if it's for a match or if it's for just some fun plinking here at the range, this is the bag that I grab. With it, you'll find the painted blue banded horn I carry with 3F traditional real black powder. Currently in that horn, there is Swiss black powder. The second bag I have is more of a reenactorism or a contemporary muzzleloading item. This is kind of my possibles bag, so to speak. This carries some of the extra equipment for my flintlock muzzleloader. If I'm going out on a full weekend trip, or if I'm going out on a trek with some friends or something, I'm going to bring both bags to make sure that I have everything I need, so that if I'm back in the woods and I can't come up to the house or can't get to my car easily, I have the necessary equipment and tools to keep my muzzleloader going. So to get started first, we're going to go through my main primary bag here. This is a bag handmade by my friend Eric Ewing. This is groundhog leather that Eric had and worked with. I think he tanned it himself, but I'm not entirely sure there. To put it on here, you'll notice that it sits pretty high up in my armpit here. My horn will lay just above this. It's very high in my armpit, but when you look at traditional paintings from the 18th and early 19th century, you're going to notice that their hunting pouches or their shot bags, however you want to call this, is up high in the crook of their arm. It really is a nice thing to have. It kind of looks uncomfortable. You have to hike your arm up here to get down into the bag on occasion. But if I'm moving through the woods and off the trail back in here where there's a lot of brush and a lot of undergrowth, this isn't getting caught or snagged on anything because it's so high up. And it's hard for it to droop down even when I have round balls in there. So if I'm crouching down and moving through some brush, this can't really move a whole lot. And I can kind of keep it in place with my arm as I'm moving, which really makes it a utilitarian way to carry the bag. Now, of course, depending on the amount of clothing I'm wearing, right now I just have a sweatshirt and a shirt on underneath that, so I'm pretty thin as far as clothing goes. If I'm putting on my full historic kit, where I might have a half an inch or more of fabric added onto this, I can stretch this out with the adjustable strap here to make it more comfortable, and so that I can keep this bag in my armpit as I'm, depending on whatever I'm wearing. Now, at a shooting match or something, it might be more comfortable for you to carry this down closer to your hip, just to make it easier to access everything. And that's really, really up to you and what you want to use your muzzleloader for. I want to start with what is hanging from the primary strap of my shooting pouch or my shot pouch here. Depending on who you talk to and what their historic influence and contemporary influences are, you're going to see people with more and less hanging from the strap. I just have a few primary tools here hanging from the strap of my shot pouch. First, I have a river cane powder measure. This is kind of a traditional powder measure that would be set up. You'll see a lot of these made out of bone or antler, especially from a significant deer that somebody has hunted. This is 55 grains, so my friend Jody Baxter made this for me to go with the predetermined load that I had set up for my Kibler rifle. Then next up here, I have a little pan brush from Eric Ewing. This is some groundhog that I believe that he tanned himself, and it's just kind of a nice little homespun style. This is something I can use to get the priming powder out of my pan in kind of a clean and efficient manner and not have any dampness or any oils from my skin get into that pan if I need to rub or wipe any of that out. So that's something that can be used. It's kind of up to you and your own personal preference if you really use a brush a lot. So it's not necessarily something you need to have, but it is something that's really light and doesn't really add a lot of weight or take up much space. Both of those tools are attached with a thin leather thong. It's some veg tan leather I'm working on cutting cutting up some of the bark tan hide that I have picked up already to kind of replace this for a more natural look. But this would traditionally age really nicely, I think, personally. You know, the more I use my bag and more I use these tools. This is a sliding vent pick I picked up from Jonah Kane. It was made by Longhunter, who's an Indiana maker here. I like sourcing things from my friends and family and kind of the local area here. That'll be kind of a theme you see across a lot of this equipment. It just has a nice stiff piece of wire in here that slides in and out of this turned, I believe it's ash or elm piece here to hold that together. The more and more you shoot a flintlock, you're going to find you're going to need a vent pick, especially if you're doing, you know, 15 plus shots. You're going to want something that you can get in there and clean out that vent with. Also attached with jute here, I have a tiny hand-forged screwdriver and a piece of oak for its handle. Just a simple tool so that I can tear down my lock if I need to. I can get to my lock, I can adjust my flint, and kind of tweak some of the things on my rifle as I need to. Really simple tool, but I think it's important to have this in your primary bag just in case. You can also keep a lot of this stuff, you know, like your vent pick or your screwdriver in the pocket of your coat or your pants, you know, depending on what you're wearing. If you're period or traditional, it doesn't really matter. You can carry a lot of this stuff in that pocket. I like attaching this kind of stuff to the bag so that I can't lose it. And I know that if I want to go out and shoot on a morning, I can grab my bag and my horn, I can grab my rifle, and there's enough in there that I can go comfortably shoot for a couple hours and not really have to worry about anything. Going inside the bag now, I haven't weighed my bag. I know some guys out there will, but I think this is probably less than 2 pounds really in total, and it's packed full of lead balls right now. Again, I like to keep my setup pretty light with my shot pouch. I don't want it to be big and cumbersome. I just want the essentials. And there's even stuff in here that I don't necessarily need all the time, and it's something I'm working through adjusting so that I can further refine my equipment, just like you would at home. You know, none of this is final or perfect. It's going to evolve through my whole lifetime. So the first thing I have in here is something that could definitely go into a coat pocket or a jacket pocket as I'm shooting, but it's just my little short starter here. If I'm shooting a tight load, you know, with a 395 ball and a 15 thousandths or an 18 thousandths patching, it's pretty tight, and it gets a little difficult to really start that with my wood ramrod. If I'm shooting kind of a 390 or maybe a 385 round ball, not necessarily going for extreme accuracy, just plinking in the morning or something, I generally don't really need a short starter. And there's kind of, it goes back and forth on historical accuracy and reference of the short starter, but as far as contemporary muzzleloading goes, it's nice and good to have one of these in your kit. This is just kind of the base of kind of a small antler here at the top with a stud for your super short starter, and then there's a hickory ramrod section here coming out the base to further short start that about 6 inches or so. Here I have my little primer that holds kind of a priming horn, but it's made out of brass here. This was made by Jerry Rice. I picked this up on the American Long Rifles forum, but it's just this nice little formed up primer. You can see here it's got a chain lanyard where I could hook it to my bag. I like this so much I don't want to lose it, so I've always just kept it in the pocket of my bag where it can't really get out. It has 4F priming powder in there. You don't need all the time, I don't think, to prime with 4F. A lot of guys will prime with 2 and 3F just fine, you know, measuring some out from their horn, but I like having a little 4F primer in here. This is just enough to go out and have some fun. If I'm shooting for a long time, I'll pick up a bigger priming horn and stick it in my pocket. Going on to the tool aspect of your flintlock kit, this is one of the multi-tools made and sold by Chambers, Jim Chambers Flintlocks. This is a neat little tool. It is documented. I think there's several examples of these across the accoutrements books, which is kind of neat. It's something that looks like a little axe or a little hatchet here, but it is a useful tool. We've got this little hammer pole on the back if we need to work on a flint. We have this blade out at the front, also, you know, to re-nap or work on a flint, but it can function as a screwdriver as well, which is what I've primarily used it for. And then this handle section of kind of this little axe shape here actually unscrews. And with that, we have a little vent pick attached to the head here. So you have kind of a backup vent pick in there if you need to. And then the rest of this here, we'll unscrew the vent pick from the head, screw our threads back in there. The rest of this becomes a loading jag or a cleaning jag for our rifle, which is really neat. And then we can turn this around, re-thread it, and we have a patch worm right there. So if we've lost a cleaning patch down our bore, we can shove this down there, twist it, grab our patch, and pull it out and keep shooting. Digging into the primary kind of small pocket in my pouch here, I've got some spare flints for my rifle. So I always carry a few of these. There's a couple more bouncing around at the bottom of the bag. just in case something happens with my flint, it pops out, I lose it, or it's just busted up and I don't want to take the time to try to re-nap it. I can just drop in a new fresh sharp flint and keep shooting. And then it looks kind of messy here. The large pocket here at the base of my bag is just loose. And in there, I just have loose lubed patches and loose round balls for my Kibler. I can kind of differentiate, as Bob McBride has said in the past, between a ball and a patch with my fingers, so I don't really worry about separating them. I'm not the kind of guy that has a couple tins in here and keeps them separate. I just dump them all in the main pouch of the bag here, and I can just fiddle around and grab one real quick. You might notice that I have a second powder measure hanging off over here on the other side. This was the first powder measure that I was using with my Kibler Southern Mountain Rifle and the rest of this kit. It's an adjustable iron powder measure, goes from 20 to 65 grains or so. I picked this up from Jason Gatliff at Muzzleloader magazine at one of the events a couple years ago. And then I used that really to define and get the load measured that my rifle liked. And from there, then I can make or have made or use just a single natural powder measure that isn't adjustable, because I know when I get to the top of this, that's my most efficient load for that rifle, and I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about it coming undone or adjusting. I know this is always going to be the same amount for my rifle. And all in all, that's it. That's everything that I carry in my shot pouch for my Kibler Southern Mountain Rifle. I try to keep it light, and like I said, I'll redistribute some of these items to my pockets as I need to make loading and using my pouch a little more efficient while I'm out at a match or on the trail. Jumping now to the possibles bag, so to speak. This is my extra small bag just for carrying some extras in the field. This is a leather pouch I made, patterned off of the Jeff Luke videos that you can see on the NMLRA YouTube channel and a lot of the tutorials that he's put out over the years on leather making. Not a perfect bag. I have a lot of ways to go, but it is fun to carry something made by your own hand, so I encourage you to try that out if you can. This is kind of a Southern style, goes with the mountain rifle, mystique and era, kind of a heart-shaped pouch here. It is a little small for my hands, so getting down here into the bottom is difficult for the size of my hands. That's why I'm not using it as a primary shot bag. But for these accessories that I'm carrying, it works pretty well. Just like our main shot pouch here, we have a small inner pocket here, so we have a double pocket. We have this small pocket, and then we have our main larger pocket of the pouch. In here, I have a flint wallet to hold a few more spare flints, as well as some ramrod jags, kind of back up to the Chambers multi-tool that we have there. These are sized specifically for my 40 caliber. These came from Cabin Creek Muzzleloading out in Pennsylvania, hand forged, handmade. That's the kind of thing I love to add to my kit when I can. I've got 3 flints here just as backup. You never know when you're gonna need them, and with my spare bag here, I wanna make sure I have some spare flints, because when I'm carrying this bag, I'm gonna be out a little bit farther away from the car or home, or I'm gonna be out just for a longer period of time. This flint wallet is patterned off of Jeff Luke's pattern that you can find at nmlra.org. I also have a small hand-forged screwdriver in here, or turn screw, that my father made just as another backup in there. You never know when you're gonna need it, and it doesn't add a lot of weight. That folds up nice and ties just with a simple leather thong there. Then I have a ball bag. This is a double ball bag made by Eric Ewing. This carries some more .395 round balls for my Kibler 40 caliber Southern Mountain Rifle. It's got a nice horn spout here and an oak plug there. So in here I can carry really as many balls as I'm going to need. Then in this center pocket here, I also have a pair of Larry Callahan pliers. These are really handy. Again, with carrying this bag, I'm away for a little bit longer. I want to make sure that I have enough tools to keep going. So I've got a pair of pliers here. These also work well to remove a stuck ramrod. So if I get something stuck out in the field, I can usually get something going and get this working. Also in this smaller pouch here, I have a few more flints. So I think I've got about 10 flints now if I'm carrying both bags together here. Really more than enough flints for an outing, but again, they're so small, they're so light. Doesn't really add a lot of weight or take up much space. Then the last thing I have in this bag is a Larry Callahan bag mold for a .395 round ball. So if I'm out in the field and I have some lead in my pack, I can cast a few more balls. Really haven't used this personally, but it's a nice thing to have, and I think if you are making a muzzleloading set, it's the kind of nice thing to have. These hand molds were traditionally used and are well documented, and they're not expensive, especially the ones that Larry makes for the quality that you're getting. So it's a nice thing to have in your bag to know that you can keep your muzzleloader going, you know, if you run out of balls and you have some spare lead in your kit. Now, the rest of this bag is empty. I could carry some more patching, some more balls, or some more lube in here if I needed to. But I like having a small secondary bag like this because it prevents me from carrying too much. You'll see guys out there that are, you know, have like saddle bags set up, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. There are times where I am setting up and kitting out and carrying a bunch of big bags out into the woods or out to a match or something to make sure that I have everything that I need. Nothing wrong with that, but for my uses with this particular rifle, I want to be light and I want to be able to move through the woods a little easier. So that's why I'm carrying 2 smaller bags, and a lot of times just the 1 smaller bag to go with my mountain rifle. Your mileage really may vary. You know, you might have more in your bag and you might be able to function with less, but this is, you know, kind of how I do it. And like I said, it's always evolving, it's always changing. So, you know, leave some of your notes or some of your thoughts about it in the comments, or write me an email. I'm always willing to listen and to learn from folks out there, especially, you know, as we just share ideas and kind of keep all this going. I encourage you, you know, if you are interested, share your loadout or your bag contents in the comments below the video so we can kind of share and people can get more of a perspective on what other people are carrying in their bags. This is just one way to do it, and I find that it works pretty well as kind of a simple, light setup. I'm Ethan. I love muzzleloading. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you next time.